I learned how to code in 2017, and a lot has changed since then. I want to talk about a lot of the problems with learning how to code nowadays. I want to talk about some of the stuff that I see now with everything that has to do with learning to code on the internet right now, with social media and online boot camps and things you see on Reddit, getting jobs, AI, all that stuff. There's a lot of things that are different than when I set out to learn how to code. And a lot of people who talk about this stuff didn't have to do it in the current times. And they didn't have to deal with a lot of the stuff that there is now. There's just so many resources. There's so many people that become an echo chamber saying a lot of the same things. And then there's so many people saying so many different things. There's so much confusion on what programming language you learn. And there's a lot of bad information and telling people to all learn the same thing. Yeah, of course, if you want to learn web development, you should learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's a no-brainer, right? But then you start getting into a lot of people play favorites when it comes to technology stacks. And a lot of people are very opinionated on what it is that you should learn. Not necessarily because it's the best thing to learn. It's because it's what they like, which is fine. But then that adds a lot of confusion to a lot of people who are just starting out. A lot of beginners end up having a real hard time trying to distinguish who's just talking about a framework or something that they like versus who's trying to actually give me information that's going to help me learn and become a programmer. You get on Twitter, you get on YouTube, and you see a lot of that stuff. And it's become a battle of getting clicks and likes and views versus putting out good information. I've seen a lot of YouTubers who put out good information who are kind of not putting out that information anymore because they don't want to play the games that you have to play in order to get views on YouTube. The truth is that many people who watch content on YouTube or scroll social media for certain topics like learning to code, for example, most people want to be entertained. They want to consume their information in a fun way, which then makes it difficult because some people don't want to go out of their way to make the information fun. So then you start dealing with more actors than educators, and you start dealing with more personalities than you do with professionals. That's what creates a lot of these tech influencers, myself included. I'm definitely talking about myself in a lot of these examples. I'm plenty guilty of it. I figured out how to get views on YouTube, and it was adding fancy B-roll, clickbaity thumbnails, and clickbaity titles. That's just kind of what you have to do. And I'm not proud of it. It's a big reason why I stopped making coding content, because I didn't feel like I wanted to keep playing that game. I tested myself to see if I can grow a YouTube channel, and I did. And I know how to now. I know what sells on YouTube. And the problem is that other people understand that, and they focus more on trying to get views on their videos and put out good information. And don't get me wrong, there's still people that do a combination of both, but it's hard to tell the difference. And then what happens too is that a lot of the people making content on all these social media platforms are doing it to get paid. Again, myself included, right? Like we don't want to do this for free. It's a lot of work to put content out like that. These same people start getting approached by different companies and different brands and different learning platforms and different boot camps. And some people have ethics, and some people have a good moral compass and won't let themselves get bought out and just shill anyone who's willing to pay them. But some people don't. I've seen channels that only talk about boot camps because boot camps have a high CPM. That's the reality of it. I've seen channels who talk about remote work because it just happens to be what they're trying to sell you. Their course is all about becoming a remote worker. Their learning platform that they sell you is all about becoming a remote worker. So that's what they sell. That's what they talk about. That's what they try to push on you. And that makes it very, very hard when you're a beginner, because it's hard to distinguish who's telling the truth and who's just trying to get paid. It really, really, really is not good for the person coming in and trying to learn. And that's one thing that's really bugging me a lot with influencers in learning to code. Another thing too is the job market. Some people will talk about it, but many of the times, a lot of those people will say oh, don't worry about it. Just keep learning and eventually you'll get a job. And there's definitely truth to that, but it's foolish to not point out how bad the job market actually is right now. And it's disingenuous to do so. And if you're not talking about that and you're not being honest about it, then I would say that you're almost not trustworthy. If your livelihood depends on you selling the dream of getting a programmer job, you're probably not going to be very real about it. And you'll always try to add a silver lining, or you'll always try to be extra optimistic, or you might try to force that optimism in order to give people the hope to continue to do this because it benefits you, not because it benefits them. And I want to say that I do believe that if you learn how to code and you stick with it and you build stuff and you put yourself out there and you work really, really hard, that you could get a job. But it is rough out there right now. It's bad. Like, the job market is the worst I've ever seen. And I'm not trying to spread FUD. I'm not trying to discourage people from setting out to do this, but I would be lying to you if I said that, yeah, just learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and you'll get a job. Times have changed. It ain't 2017 anymore. It's not 2020 anymore. Those were a lot better years to get a job as a developer. Learning a little bit of HTML and CSS and JavaScript, in 3 months, you can get a job. That's not the case anymore. There's a lot more people trying to do this. And while I do know that there's plenty of opportunity and software development jobs will still continue to grow, as it stands right now today, if you look for it, you'll see it. You go on Reddit and you see people who are applying to hundreds of jobs that get posted and within hours have hundreds of applicants. This wasn't happening a few years ago. Again, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy about it. I'm not trying to be discouraging. I'm just being real. It's probably one of the hardest times to become a self-taught programmer and get a job. Even if you're a boot camp graduate or a college graduate, it's probably a really tough time to get a job as a software developer. With that said too, it's like there's so many methods of learning now, and most of them are trash. There's a lot of good resources that are paid. There's a lot of good resources that are free. There's a ton of boot camps that have popped up out of the woodwork in the last few years, especially after COVID, that are complete garbage. They lie about their numbers. They all teach the same thing, and they're not good. I've seen the stories on Reddit. I've interviewed people that have dealt with it and gone through it. I've seen other people be interviewed that have gone through it. Still, these boot camps are around, and still these boot camps make these big promises, and still they lure people in with their ISAs. And every influencer, everyone and their mother is starting a new course or learning platform. They shove ads on every platform down your throat to make you try to buy or sign up. It's so difficult to navigate. It's so difficult to try to figure it out as someone who's new and who's learning how to code. And there's just very little true, pure information out there anymore. And it's funny because you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you tell people all you need to learn how to code is free code camp, the Odin project, and all these other free resources, they tell you, no, it's no good because it's free. And then you tell people, okay, well, why don't you use, this program or that program or this curriculum? And they're like, well, no, that all costs money. It's too expensive. It's not worth it for the price. And then you get lost. And being someone who's new and just learning how to code, you're trying to navigate through that, and you're trying to figure out who's telling the truth and who's lying, who's getting paid and who's benefiting from this. And the thing is learning how to code is already hard enough as it is. And having to figure all this stuff out and having to deal with this nowadays is rough. It's hard. I would not want to have to learn how to code nowadays. On top of all that, you have ChatGPT and AI coming in and scaring the shit out of everyone. When ChatGPT first came out, I made a video talking about how AI is not going to take your job and basically saying that we're all safe. I don't know if that's true anymore. They just had that big OpenAI dev day yesterday with all those announcements, and seeing what this stuff is doing, and now having a little bit of a better understanding of it and getting to play with it and building out stuff with it and using it on a fairly regular basis and playing with its API and seeing some of its capabilities and watching how fast it's growing and seeing what it's doing. There's a lot of jobs out there that I don't know, man, they might not be safe. And while I still think you're going to need competent developers to make use of the AI and to know how to implement things that the AI will help with, I will say that it's probably going to eliminate quite a bit of jobs. And I don't know, right? Like I'm not seeing into the future, but it's going to eliminate jobs in all industries. Like anything that can be automated, anything that is not, I guess, creative work, and even some creative work. This AI stuff is here and it's real and it's not going anywhere, and it's only going to get smarter, and it's only going to get more popular, and it's only going to become more utilized. And pretty soon, all these people telling you learn how to code are going to be telling you to become a plumber and a carpenter and an electrician, because those jobs will be safe from AI for a while until they build robots that can do the stuff. But for now, it's a lot of the desk jobs. It's a lot of the mundane clerical work. It's a lot of the automatable job duties that are going to be replaced. And while I think there are some great benefits to AI, especially when it comes to learning and being a developer, like just using the stuff is awesome. Let's be real. Companies are cutthroat and they want to save money. And at the end of the day, they want to figure out how they can use this stuff to not have to pay people big salaries. And some of the biggest salaries out there are software developer salaries. There's just a lot of things that AI will eventually affect. And I am genuinely concerned on how things are going to play out in the next 5 or 10 years with AI, and all industries, and software being one of them. If I was learning how to code today and I saw all this stuff and I didn't know what information was correct, because every influencer is a paid shill, either for their own product or for their sponsors and affiliates. And every boot camp is trying to get whatever students that they can. And the job market was shit, and AI was crazy scary, and like all this stuff, I'd be terrified. If someone came to me today and told me that they wanted to learn how to code, I do still think that there's a lot of opportunity that can come from teaching yourself how to code. And I do still think that you could get a job, or you could go out and freelance or build your own products. There's still a lot of value in it. But I'd be lying if I told people that right now is a great time to become a programmer, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the industry. And it's a tough time to learn how to code, while it's still probably the easiest time to learn how to code. You know, with all those things I just said, like in 2017, if I had a question about something that I was struggling with, it would be really, really hard for me to find someone who can answer it. You know, I was limited to Stack Overflow and Google. And now with the fact that we do have AI and there are more people putting information out there, it's easier, but at the same time, it's harder than it's ever been. I don't know if that's confusing or if that makes any sense, but that's how I feel about it. And so I hope I don't contradict myself too much with like my first statement in this video, but I just thought I had to make this video because there's a lot of things that bug me right now with the state of learning how to code. I just felt like I had to get this off my chest. So I hope it was helpful. I hope it wasn't too discouraging. I'm just trying to be as real as possible. But like I said, I still think there's a lot of value in learning how to code for many reasons beyond just getting a job. If you have the grit and determination to teach yourself how to code and be able to build applications, it unlocks so many opportunities. But with that said, you know, it's still uncertain times and it's not easy. That's pretty much all I had to say for this video. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.